What's up, everybody? Profitable Stylist coming at you. I'm Eddie Ohanian. I got Bernard Ori with us. Today, we're going to be talking about problems with synthetic hair. Now,
it's plastic and it melts.
Then there you go. That's our problems.
Done.
When we're talking about synthetic hair, we're just talking about something that's not human. And we think about plastic immediately, but there's so many other aspects to it that we don't realize, all right? So, Bernard, you're going to take us down some of that. You're going to get us started.
Yeah. I might have a little different opinion on that. So you're right. I guess it's interesting because when people say, is this human hair? They just mean, is it human hair and not anything else? But you're right. I didn't even think about bringing animal fiber into this because I don't think of synthetic hair. They just fiber, mean, but is it human hair and not? You're going to talk about human hair, 100% human hair. If it's not human hair, it's something else. And I think we should classify that, yes, some animal hair, even horse tails, the belly hair of a yak animal is used in a lot of extensions and hair replacement. And so I would call it animal hair, but there's so many other things. Even yarn, wool is used. So, man, I didn't even think about there being another classification. I was going to mostly talk about synthetic hair as it's used in wigs and hair extensions and braids and dreads compared to human hair. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll do three classifications.
Let's
human, synthetic, and animal. I'm sure there's other things we hadn't thought of. But the very first thing, I want to kind of stay true to the topic and say problems with synthetic hair with hair extensions. So it's been done for many, many years. I remember 30 years ago when I was just getting into extensions, there was a few different companies out there that were selling a lot of synthetic fiber. Inevitably, it's a very thin, fine, I guess it's kind of spun out like cotton candy, spun out in thin strings of plastic, and they do it in different colors. And I should mention a couple of the benefits of synthetic hair because, it's not all bad. It's great on a wig for certain reasons.
It's got its places in the industry for it, for sure.
Yeah. But in extensions, the reason it didn't do so well, God, I'm in my head, I'm like, God, the good and the bad. But at one point, that people were afraid that we were going to run out of human hair. And that's come again recently, but it ebbs and flows where there's more and less supply of human hair. And so people say, ooh, maybe we need to use synthetic because we can make as much as we need. I get that. But the real problem with synthetic is that it melts at too low of a temperature. Human hair can take some pretty high temperatures. And I guess technically you know more about this than me, these iron companies, these flat irons and curling irons, are they making temperatures higher than human hair can actually take?
They are. The natural threshold of the cuticle is 392. We commonly say 400 degrees. But it's actually 392 degrees Fahrenheit is the threshold for the human cuticle. So all these flat irons coming up at 450 degrees, and then we saw in particular the preview for the 550. Remember the 550 degree flat iron that was going to come?
I've never seen that one. No, I've never seen the 5.
I'll tell you about it later. We're not supposed to talk about it, I guess.
Yeah.
But that was the problem. And some of these keratin smoothing treatments, in the way that they're made, there are treatments and there are services out there that require that level of degree and temperature for them to work. When used professionally and used for a specific purpose, we can control the level of heat so it doesn't damage the hair. The problem is nowadays everybody can get a hold of everything. So now you've got the end user, you got the common client, the common person sitting home. And how many YouTube's videos have you seen the one? She's sitting there with the iron and
yeah, I love that facial expression at the end.
Love it. That's
think they're
what
going
you
to
get,
teach.
Yeah.
Well, and you said something I want to kind of clarify just really quick for the person out there, even the hairdresser out there. They're putting a 450 degree iron on their hair. The reason why it's that hot is on dry hair and damaged hair, 450 degrees would burn it. On dry, healthy hair, that 392 threshold would probably be okay, or 391. But when you get up to 450, I like a hot iron, but the way we control it, like you said, professionally, we can use that iron, is that we put it on and start moving. It takes a minute for the hair to actually go from whatever the ambient, whatever temperature it is in the air, 70, 80 degrees, and then our body heat, 90 something. So somewhere around 75, 80 degrees, I guess our hair would be. As soon as you touch it, it's not going to be 450 like that.
Right.
So it's raising, and we know, start moving that iron, and the more damaged the hair is, start moving it quicker. And then when you put like the keratin treatments and products on there, you've got a moist hair that's sizzling and crackling, and it sounds like a lot of damage, but really it's maybe warming the hair enough to get that in there, but that wet product is cooling it off too. So that's why you can use an iron hotter, but you're right. Then it came out to all people without the right knowledge, and that's when they burn hair off. So let's try to get back to synthetic hair. That's the problem with synthetic hair. And I would love to say there's an exact melt point, but there's high quality and low quality synthetic hair. There's some synthetic hairs out there that can take 250 to 350 degree heat, depending on what synthetic hair you have, and you can change. But for the most part, most inexpensive synthetic hair melts when you put a regular flat iron, curling iron, and that's not the big problem. So some people say, okay, well, I just won't, I won't blow dry it with hot heat temperatures, and I won't curl an iron or flat iron it. But even just basic sleeping, just sleeping, putting your head back on a car seat and pivoting your body, and that twisting and turning, the friction of the hair, just that friction causes some heat that damages synthetic hair. Human hair can take a lot more heat. It stretches. It's got a little bit more give. I can see you want to say something. Go.
Where you start saying about the sleeping and going back against the car seat and friction. Anybody who knows me knows when it comes to extensions, I'm constantly harping about tangles, matting, dreadlocking. That's my biggest problem with the synthetic. It's not so much that it melts, because you could just be mindful of that and don't put any heat to it. But the amount of tangling and to keep it smoothed out all the time is such a freaking pain in the butt.
Well, it's funny. As you were starting to talk, I was writing notes next to my notes where I have tangling. And the biggest problem with it's weird. Human hair, I mean, it has a unique, I know human hair tangles too, but I know from the hair replacement industry, they put hair in these bases or of wigs and hair pieces and hair replacement, and they knot the hair in, and it wants to come loose. And what we say in the industry is hair does not like to be knotted. It's always trying to untangle. Sure, we damage a little. The cuticle layer gets blown open, and it wants to grab onto itself a little bit. But for the most part, hair does not want to tangle when it's healthy. It wants to untangle, unknot, and synthetic hair is not human hair, obviously. So it will tie like a rope or a string right in a knot and just stay in there. That's an advantage if you're trying to put it in a wig or a hair system and you want that hair to be staying in there a little bit better, last a little longer in some cases, which I'll go into in a minute in the wigs department. But the thing I wanted to cover real quick, just a quick visual of synthetic. When you look at it, you just say something doesn't look right. And most people don't know what they're seeing that doesn't look right. The first thing is the surface. The surface of synthetic hair, for most people, it's flat and smooth, and that's why it's shiny, dull hair. But human hair has that cuticle layer, and it's not naturally shiny, and it's even more dull the more chemical damage or the more the cuticle's been lifted. So in both categories, we're always trying to meet in the middle. People with human hair are putting shiny, glossy keratin, trying to fill that cuticle and smooth the surface so it looks a little shinier under the light. And with wigs and synthetic hair, people are using wig powders to try to dull the shine, or they rough the surface. So, it's kind of funny how we're kind of meeting in the middle there, but that's just one of the characteristics. And then the other one that comes to mind really quickly is synthetic hair is bigger around. And then I can't help it. We're going to do origins of hair at some point, so I'm not going to go deep into it, but origins of hair. Different people groups, where the hair comes from is different sizes, and for most of the time, synthetic hair is the largest, and then you've got Chinese hair, Indian hair, European hair. So it gets smaller depending on, where the hair is coming from. And most Americans are European descendants, and so we're trying to get more of a European, Indian hair. and a Chinese hair doesn't work as well. But then if you get a client with coarse hair, a Chinese origin of hair would work better. So there's that, the size of hair. Whew, you want to talk a little? I'm worn out on that.
No. You're on a roll. I got you. You go. Yeah, I got you. The other thing about the synthetic hair as well too is the amount of color selection. They can make any colors they want, and they can do however they want to do it. But once they do it, that's it. So unless you can find that specific color that matches exactly to the client that you're putting it on, that's what they get. And a lot of people, they find that they're having to color the client's hair to match the synthetic hair rather than the other way around. Usually when we do extensions, we get as close as we can, if not perfect, and we pop them in, and then we run a toner or a glaze over it, and everything kind of blends together. It marries in, as we call it, and it works out beautifully, right? But with the synthetic hair, you're always going to have a disconnect in the color. The other thing, what ends up happening is when you're doing that, the problem, what happens is, how you call it, the color, I hate saying color fades, because color doesn't really fade. You know, color, and I know this isn't about hair color right now.
You're talking like a colorist. You can say it fades.
I know.
I know you're going to get all technical on it.
So, all right. So what I'll say is synthetic hair stays consistent, whereas natural hair color goes through phases, and then you have a disconnect and variation in there as well, too.
So, you know, that's interesting you say that. It reminds me of something I did years ago. I custom ordered, I had this one customer for years that came from somebody else, and she had a synthetic hair system on, and she wanted to keep that same one because, like I said, when the knots are in there, it lasts a long time. But you did bring up color. So color can be good or bad. You're right. A lot of these, on these forums, you'll see people are talking about how do you get this color? And it's like, oh, that's not a natural hair color, so you can't just get it. Have a seat and watch if you like, or leave. You can't stalk on me like that.
He's got an audience.
People walk. I get an audience live.
You got a live audience.
Yeah, in the live audience. But that synthetic hair is good and bad, like you just said. I've got people saying on the forums, how do I get this color? And I love it when people post and they say, you can't. It's synthetic, because there's some colors, like some of those reds, they're freaking beautiful, but you can't reproduce that with hair color. You just can't do it. Some of these interesting in-between colors. But then the other thing, the fading thing, synthetic does fade, but it takes a very long time. It's usually true through and through. And you cannot, like you said, you can't just change it in the salon. You can't put bleach on it. You can't do anything to fade that color like right now, right today. But I had a lady years ago, we ordered a system. It was my fault. Ordered the wrong color, a little too dark. And she said, I don't like it. I thought, shoot, I can't send it back. So you know what I did? This is just common sense. I stuck it in the window. And I knew that her systems lasted 6 to 9 months. And about every month or two, I turned it around, because I know my dashboard fades over a year or two in my car. And so I literally took about 1.5 years. I thought, I got this thing. It's made for her head. Maybe one day we'll use it. Do you know, like 2 years later, we used it.
Oh, wow.
Because, yeah, I mean, it was a long shot. It was a bit of a test, an experiment. But I put it in the window, and every few months, it was in the laundry room. So when we did towels, I'd look at it and think, I'm going to turn it around. I wonder if that one side's getting lighter than the other. It was the window that gets the sun all day long. So I turned it around, and over some time it faded. Maybe she decided she liked a little darker hair. Maybe, you know, a few things might have gone on over 2 years, you know. But yeah, she eventually used it I don't know if it was in a pinch. Maybe I gave her a deal. I just remember trying to fade it in the window, and it actually worked. But I'm sure there was a few other things bringing it together. So we talked about oranges of hair, the size of the hair. I wanted to talk about a couple of other things. There are some companies, even the company I work with, that are testing synthetic hairs because we're trying to get it to have a rougher surface. And the other thing is, different color hair has different diameters, even within the same people group. And so if you're going to make a blonde hair, it should be a little smaller than a dark hair, which is a little bigger. And then it should have a rough surface, be able to take a little bit more heat, and potentially be porous. So you see, synthetic hair is not porous. So you can go underwater with a wig on, come up, shake it, or just dip it in a bucket and shake it, and it still has its curls and waves. Is that good or bad? I mean, if you're a cancer survivor, you just had surgery, which so many people do in this upper part of their body, and they just can't use their arms, maybe muscles or something's been done, and they can just barely get a wig on their head, and that's it. It's a big benefit to have a synthetic wig because then it's styled. I mean, they don't have to do anything because I've helped, my mom sold wigs. And so I remember that being a big deal. She tried to send people to me to get the human hair systems custom made for them. And they're like, I just had this surgery. I can't lift my arms above here. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So synthetic works out for them. They can't do all that styling. Whereas somebody that can wants to do all that styling because it looks a little bit better. So there's a place for synthetic. There really is. It's just, I don't think it's for human hair extensions yet.
You just reminded me something about when we used to do pieces.
Are you talking about hair replacement? When you say pieces, what do you mean?
Toppers and that sort, right? Because the technology has improved tremendously over the years. It's so much better now than what it was. But there was a time where they would actually take fibers or synthetic and they'd mix it in. They'd have those blends. You know, remember they used to make those blends with the wigs and the toppers and the hair replacements and stuff. Those worked out really nice because it allowed it to make the hair fuller without having, you know, with keeping cost control. Because 100% human hair, it's beautiful. Of course it is. But there is
it's the most expensive.
It's the most expensive. Right. So there was another use of synthetic. When they started doing it in extensions, as far as, you know, and clip-ins were okay too, because clip-ins were temporary. You take them off, you put them back in. You don't keep them in for an extended period of time. When they started doing them as the adhesives, or when they started doing them as wefts, or when they started doing them as the strands, and they were trying to blend that all together to fill it in, you know, because everybody's got big on the grams. How many grams are in this hair, in this body? Right. And I'm like, dude,
right.
You just need density. So yeah, that was one of the issues is, okay, fine. Then they'd forget that it was a blend. It wasn't Remy. It wasn't 100% Remy. And all of a sudden they'd run a blow dryer through. You'd get a phone call and you'd say, half my hair came off in it's like, well, whoops.
Just a synthetic half. Hey, you just reminded me of about a few things. I like that you said human is very expensive. Not all human though. And so that's something just to kind of be said. Some people
Bernard is way more expensive than I am. I'm just putting it out there.
You can go into a local beauty supply and buy hair that's got all the right words across the top of the packaging. And it says 100%. Ooh, people like to hear that word. Human, Remy. They don't even know what, I shouldn't say nobody. Most people don't know what Remy means.
No, most people
don't. But they do love. I love asking it in classes because people think they know and they make up a bunch of stuff. So 100% human, Remy hair just means it's all hair, cuticles going in the same direction. But so often it doesn't necessarily, it's not from the right origin. That's the problem. Or it's been overprocessed. Because that's a whole nother video in itself, where the hair comes from, how it's processed, because you've got high end and very low end human hair before you even move into synthetic. So let's leave that for another video. I just want to put it out there that yes, of course, even the exact same hair, I charge more for putting it in than you do because I'm better than you. But when it comes, but we could still both buy low end hair, pay less for it, and then I'll still be more expensive than you. I'm just You said it, man. I had to go with it.
We're going to have, what would you call, you know how they say like a sing off or a cook off? What would be an extension off? How would you even say that?
We have to have people vote in the comments or something. Who's your favorite?
Who's your favorite? It's like, from the popularity? No, you're way more popular.
Yeah, popularity contest. I mean, that's truly going back to high school. One last thing, and then we're going to close this out. You also mentioned the blends, and I'm so glad you said that because some people mix it in, some don't. But what's very popular, and I've been teaching a lot of hair replacement classes over the last couple of years, and the hair replacement colorings for most of the hair replacement companies are completely different than every other coloring that stylists and barbers are used to are working with. And one of the things that they do different is the percentages of gray in the men's hair systems. So there'll be 5, 10, 20, 30, 40% gray. Well, when they put that percentage of gray, in most cases, like 90-something% of the time, you have to know from the company. The gray is synthetic, but the rest of the brown, dark black, brown, or blonde hair is human. And the reason they do it is gray hair is a little harder to get, first of all. But the other thing is that as the brown color starts to fade, because it does fade faster than synthetic, then when you go to color it or tone it, as that system fades and that client wants to keep it longer, you can take that brown that's faded a little bit and retone it or color it. And the gray, being synthetic, does not absorb color. So that 10 or 20% gray stays that 10 or 20%. And that's a really cool thing. Now, some of the companies, just to be careful, and just a little, I guess, a little disclaimer, when you get to the higher percentages of gray, the very high percentages, they will mix in, like we talked about earlier, animal hair, yak hair. So some of the gray will be synthetic. When you get high percentages of gray, synthetic doesn't look so good because it's just too much synthetic in the blend. So they'll start to mix animal fibers, easier to get, and that animal fiber will color, not with all the same rules of color as human hair, but it will take some color. So some hairdressers are having fun with getting these 90% gray systems, very little brown in it, and then coloring it blue or pink. And it's a good test, and it's kind of fun because you can see where the animal fiber is, because you can see if it was put in there evenly mixed or if it's kind of patchy. And it's a test to test your company with an old system too. Color some wild color and see how much of that animal fiber turns color, or just do it for your head so you can have a blue-white mix. Some people are doing these seriously rooted deals where they're rooting but leaving a half of the rooting a white color, and people are wondering how they're getting that. That's one of the ways they're doing it. They put a hair system on. There's a high percentage of gray synthetic and gray animal hair, and the animal hair colors and the synthetic does not. So just some fun things to root.
I'm hearing you say you want to talk about a coloring segment with extensions.
I know. We just launched 3 new things we need to talk. I hope you're taking notes because I didn't. I think we're going too long and we're going to lose the attention.
So then this is what we're going to do then.
Attention deficit people.
All right, everybody. That's it for today on This Time. All right. Bernard Ori, the popular one. Eddie Ohanian, the smart one, profitable stylist, coming at you to help you one more time. This was Problems with Synthetic Hairs.
That was good.
Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys want to hear and talk about next. And we will go from there. Catch y'all.